All right, how's everyone doing?
Great. Hi.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Scatarzi. I am the Director of Sales at Suzy. For those of you that don't know Suzy, we are an end-to-end consumer insights platform. We combine AI with high-quality audiences for a single connected research cloud. Today, we're going to be talking about approaching film marketing in an ever-changing landscape, and we've got Amelia Rogers from Lionsgate. Amelia, great to have you.
Hi, thank you.
So Amelia, why don't you start off by giving us a little bit of an introduction and an overview of Lionsgate's marketing and content strategy?
So I oversee a segment of our filmmaking, our marketing and film. That's the specialty release department. So it's a broad range of films, but not exactly the blockbuster ones you see. So all of our distribution models are a little bit different, and our content strategy is a little bit different, and each one is built. But I actually had a clip. This is internal. I've not paid for licensing, so don't share. But it kind of gives a little bit of an overview for what I'm talking about, and then we can go from there.
All right, let's do it.
In your own words, how did it start?
What do you think about when you think about us?
You and I were just forever.
You will find forgiveness and freedom right here.
Whatever that thing is, it's coming for us next.
Why are you doing this?
I like spending time with you.
She needs us the way we needed each other.
You have to raise an army inside yourself.
I'm gonna make a movie!
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide.
Welcome to the jungle.
Wouldn't you agree that that was quite reckless?
I know my behavior can be erratic.
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide. Ready or not, here
My
I
advice.
come.
Find a reason to be here that's bigger than you are.
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide. Ready or not, here I
Don't you get scared?
I'm the scariest thing in there.
Should we go? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to make yourself known in this life. Not for anyone else, but for you.
I have hit the mother load.
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide.
A little live enough this time of day.
Yeah, nice.
My team is called Team Artisan, so that was an internal reel, but it kind of gives you an overview of what we do. So the difference is it's not quite the 4-quadrant films that you see, but it's built across basically all of the other ones that aren't those.
Amazing. So, in preparing for this, we had a call, and I just learned so much about everything that Lionsgate does. You have blockbusters, you've got John Wick, you've got Mad Men, all sorts of amazing content, and then you do a lot of very niche things as well. So the theme of today's talk is about adapting to ever-changing landscapes. What's your secret sauce? How do you do that?
I mean, I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. I think all of our campaigns, I mean, I can speak to the marketing side mostly, are really built from the bottom up, and we're looking at consumer consumption as we do it. So we don't necessarily have like a full baked plan when we either acquire a film or make it in this space. Also, we're not spending a ton of money. We're not spending, tens of millions of dollars making these films. So it's a little bit of a lower risk. So we can take the time to build it out. They're built that way to have like the agile behavior to change, like, once we're ready, so. And then it's like, it depends on the date, the time, like, what's happening in the world, like, what people are looking for. And then we can decide, like, our distribution and marketing model together. So I think that's part of the secret sauce, and then I think it's, out of luck, too.
Awesome. So I know we talked a lot about just how fragmented audiences' attentions are. I heard a lot about that today. What's the best way that you found to cut through the noise when it gets to getting your campaign seen and heard?
It depends on the film. I mean, we're definitely figuring out each audience per film. So I think you're thinking about who the consumer is and what's working within that space. I mean, for the most part, in the specialty space, it's not necessarily the traditional moviegoer. So in our for-caution space, you're kind of looking at like people who regularly go to movies. In the space that I'm in, well, we could have a wide theatrical debut that generally has a specialty to it for like a faith film. So most people, like The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is our most recent wide release that our team did. And like looking at that audience composition, most of the people who saw that aren't the people who normally go to movies over and over and over again. It was family, it was people interested in a specific message. So to cut through that noise, like they're not getting the traditional movie, even the movie posters in the theaters or trailers. They're more getting it from their church or family friends, that sort of thing. So you're building it depending on the audience. Whereas if you're going after a younger audience, you're definitely in the YouTube and the meta space and across all of that. So I think, because we build everything per film, our whole goal is to cut through the space. The other thing, we're not spending a ton of money on our limited releases, so we're not doing the traditional TV and that sort of thing, the live, Monday Night Football, that costs a lot. So we can be very focused on who we're going after and where.
Awesome. We spoke about this a little bit earlier as well, all the faith-based initiatives that you do. I know that if they were showing films in church when I was a kid, I would have paid a lot more attention. But how do you keep messaging cohesive across traditional and digital media in this day and age?
It's specific to faith-based. Our digital campaigns, I think I was telling you too, the one thing about faith films, in order to break out, if you're really leaning to the faith part of it, it doesn't feel like, and we're trying to make these a theatrical experience. We are trying to get people to go to the theaters with faith-based. We're not just putting them out on streaming or on digital. So we're trying to give it a theatricality. So we're comping, The Jesus Revolution was the first big film that I had done in this space, and our comp was almost famous. We used the Doobie Brothers in our trailers. We weren't getting Christian music on there. So in Pageant, for instance, we Home Alone was our comp. We decided to make these kids really naughty. So you're trying to find accessible things that make it feel like a big movie, because they are. They're made for film, for theaters. And so in the digital space, we leaned into the naughty. The Herdmans are the kids in this movie, if you know, it's based on a book from the 70s. And so we really played up their pranking and that sort of thing, and them getting in trouble. But then, laid in heart, and weren't afraid to put, some of the bells and whistles that come with the faith marketing. But it's very subtle, so it's if you know, you know. But it didn't turn off mainstream audiences either. So I think for Lionsgate, at least, we have these specific faith films, and they're more inspirational in tone than they are very hardcore faith.
Gotcha. So obviously, Lionsgate, you guys are known for a lot of your independent filmmakers and how you guys are able to I guess for better words, showcase independent filmmakers to larger audiences, and you also have huge blockbuster franchises. So there's a balance that you have to play there. Sometimes you're working on more short-term things, what's happening now in the moment, and then you also have to bring back things from your library. You were talking about with me privately about how you're bringing back Saw, your 10th anniversary. Tell me a little bit about how you are balancing your short-term goals with the long-term brand building. And I guess that probably applies both to individual franchises as well as to Lionsgate.
Yeah, my team also oversees the catalog in all of the libraries. So, for instance, Wick was in theaters. I don't know if it was last week or the weekend before. I'm losing track of time at this point. But and Saw 2 for their Wick was 10th anniversary. So it was in theaters for a weekend. I mean, we have Ballerina coming up next year, which is the next in the Wick franchise. And so part of that is to keep that alive through our catalog initiatives and to like really keep that IP space going. Same with Saw. Saw will have the next iteration of Saw. For Saw 10, we had a lot, basically year-round initiatives, mainly in the digital space, but then with like Wick and Saw, we're going back into theaters with both of those. And then that keeps the momentum and the fan base engaged throughout until we release the next iteration of those. And then for our other films coming out, I mean, the campaigns can be like we're still dating most of 2025 in our specialty space. And also in our 4-quadrant space. Like our big tentpole films for next year are also, it's like a game of jigsaw at this point with how films are coming out. Like anything post-COVID and strikes and everything, it's they're still kind of hitting marks. So in a way, you're planning more than you're actually doing a lot with some of these films, and then some of the smaller specialty releases can be, really like most of our stuff is in the last 2 weeks. So, and sometimes we're not even releasing a trailer until 6 weeks out.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just telling you about how Gladiator is one of my favorite movies, but I just found out there's a sequel coming out next week.
But you've been living under a rock now because you also have 2 young children, you told me, so you're like not going to the movies.
It took me.
They've been spending a lot of money on that movie.
It took me like 8 months to get through Shogun.
Yeah.
Anyway, talking about cultural moments now, how do you decide which cultural moments to tap into?
I mean, you kind of want to tap into most of them. It depends on the content of like what we have going on and like what the storytelling is in each film. So if we have something that's finished and a cultural moment comes up, I think that's the thing in the specialty release space. Like we can move around pretty quickly. So if there is something that fits and there's space open, we can slot that in. And then I would say in our digital space, our social digital team is really good at like keeping that alive, especially because we have such an IP. Like we have Twilight just went crazy because they have this Twilight Fall thing. So it's like they're pretty good at turning things around. If there's a moment in time, they'll jump on that because we have such a long library. But otherwise, it's just trying to keep track of like what the cultural moments are and leaning into them.
Yeah, and we talked a lot today about brand safety, and I'm wondering if there's obviously risks and opportunities when it comes to jumping on these cultural moments.
Yeah.
So, was there ever a time where jumping on a trend quickly hurt you, or said in a better way, are there any benefits to just being a little bit slower in your approach?
Not as much in my world, but I think on the films with bigger spends, and I can't speak to a cultural moment that went wrong, but I can say if you're shifting approaches too much, that has certainly helped hurt some of our films based on what we're seeing. That said, I mean, there's so much research and data now that you can shift and go in the right direction as well. But I think that there's value in figuring out what you're doing and sticking to it, for sure. But you also see when something's not working, you want to switch.
Perfect. So other than Lionsgate, obviously, what are the brands that you think are shaping culture right now?
Oh, I mean, there's so much. Like, it's undeniable that TikTok is like just shaping an entire generation. I'm a mom of a 13-year-old, so that is my entire life right now. It's like looking up what words mean on TikTok. But I would say in the media space, that's probably the biggest one. Obviously, everything with AI is like changing how we all look and learn things. Yeah, there's, I don't know, everything comes at you so fast that like consumer consumption is just changing in general. I mean, for sure we see that in the movie space too, and like how we're doing things.
Yeah, that was not an easy question, but
yeah.
Like you
You
said,
didn't practice that one.
No, I've been living under a rock because I have young children, and if I were to answer that question, I would say Cocomelon because that's the only thing I know for the past 3 years.
Sure, someone was saying that earlier.
I just found out about Brad Summer. Yeah. Anyway, that wraps up our content. Is there any questions from the audience?
I was curious, obviously you guys are talking about cultural moments. We've been talking a lot about fragmentation. We've been talking a lot about how a lot of people are competing for attention. With that in mind, when you're thinking about theatrical releases in particular, but also just across the portfolio, what constitutes a cultural moment anymore? And is it solely kind of the traditional big cultural moments that we've been looking in, or how are you looking at what might constitute a cultural moment for a younger generation or someone not tapped into a major broadcast moment?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's like, I do think it's having a lot of really smart people on our team that understand the space, certainly more than me. Like, even in what the trends are on TikTok, or even, any of the social platforms. And leaning into those, like, most of them I don't even know, but like you have to trust your teams on what they are. I know on Hunger Games we had a whole demonstration of like what we were doing across all of our social media, and I had zero idea. Like there were things in jars and like talking rabbits. Like how does this have anything to do with the Hunger Games coming out? But like I think it's just having the right people around you to identify those is the most important part. I don't know that there's any rule of identifying like what's a cultural moment, but certainly they're happening definitely more underground, and to be more effective and be able to talk to your audience, like tapping into those is so important, because if there's one thing people are rejecting now, it's being inauthentic. So if you can grab into those moments and like use them to your advantage, and people feel like they're a part of something else, that's huge for us, and it really helps drive audiences and also like create ambassadors for our films. So if that answers your question a little.
That's great, and I just have to say your social team does an amazing job, I feel, of just taking the actors and the talent and their personalities and really bringing them to life and making those moments on their own. So
I totally agree. Our social team is amazing, and they've done a great job. Madison Garcia is one of them, sitting in our audience right here. I have a little fan club.
Amazing work, then.
Totally agree.
Do we have time for any more questions?
I just had a quick one. Sorry, it sounded like 13 won't go right there. We sit on one of the most unique data sets in theatrical marketing, so I have a pretty clear view of this. But what's more important? It should be a simple question. What's more important to you with your franchises? Is it activating the communities that you think are going to go see this and getting them buzzing about your films, or reaching incremental new audiences? Something we struggle with a lot, so I'm just curious about your POV.
It depends on the franchise. I will say, my experience this last year, we put Strangers out, which was like a 2006 IP that people were very, very passionate about. So speaking, because I work on a little bit of the WIC and the Hunger Games stuff, but not really, so I'm going to just talk to what I know. It was, honestly, it was like leaning into the new audience was going to be a little more important, because I think that on that particular film, and that's a new franchise for us, we have at least 3 films that we're doing in this space. So we have Chapter 1 came out last May and did really well. We knew that the like original fans were probably not going to like it. And Madeline Pench, who is the star of this film, and the entire franchise, has like such a rapid following, and she is really into horror and is really big on that in her socials, etc. We knew leaning into like the next generation was going to be really important for us. We did try to like the director of the original, for instance, we reached out to and asked for a little bit of an endorsement. We tried to not alienate those fans, and we tried to, and he gave us one. But I think in that particular case, it was the new fans that came out, and we did see it with the audience. So I think there were some original fans that came out just to see what it was all about, and hopefully they'll keep coming for Chapter 2 and beyond. But I think it really depends. Like, if you're looking at WIC, like, there's such a huge fan base that just keeps coming, and I think that's who we always go after, the WIC fan base. The Hunger Games, however, I felt like was a new generation opportunity, right? So, like, the thing about Lionsgate is we're not like one of the studios that has like, the franchises that have, like Marvel, for instance. I came from Disney and I worked on Marvel properties before Lionsgate. It's a little bit different, and we're a home for so many different franchises and storytelling. We don't really have like a genre base or a niche that we're into, so it completely changes film to film.
Anyone else have one more? All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.